What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, we're going to be talking about powers of 10. And so my last video with exponents, if you did not get exponents, go check that video out again. It's the introduction to exponents. But for this one, we're just going to focus on when the base is 10. And so here we have 10 cubed, so 10 to the power of 3. What that's going to tell me is I'm going to write 10 3 times. And with the exponent, I'm going to multiply each one of these. So 10 times 10 times 10 is going to equal 1,000. So here is 10 to the power of 2, or 10 squared. I'm going to write 10 twice. So I'm writing 10 two times. And then I'm going to multiply them together. So 10 times 10 gives me 100. And then I have 10 to the power 1. I'm just writing 10 one time. And you guessed it, that equals 10. What about 10 to the power 0? So in the last video, we talked about any number to the power 0 is equal to 1. And here is why again. So if I did 1,000 and I divided by the base. So if I did 1,000 divided by 10 is going to give me 100. 100, if I'm going to divide by 10, is going to give me 10. So 10 divided by 10 is going to leave me with 1 as my answer for 10 to the power 0. So with your powers of 10, there are some things to note here. So you see I have an exponent of 3 for 10 to the power 3. Look how many zeros that are in 1,000. So I have 3 zeros. So if I have 10 squared is 2 zeros, 10 to the power of 1 is just 1 zero. You can even see 10 to the power of 0. There are no zeros. And so this pattern works. So if I have 10 to the power of 9, I would have 9 zeros. If I have 10 to the power of 50, I would have 50 zeros. And so some different patterns that we see here with the powers of 10. So now let's talk about what happens when we have negative exponents here. And so what we have here is we have 10 to the power 0. We know that one from our previous slide as 1. But what happens when I have 10 to the negative first power? So somebody might get the urge to go, oh, it's going to be a negative because I have a negative exponent. When in fact, if I keep the same pattern going of dividing by 10, what happens is the answer is 1/10. So I can see that anytime that we have a negative exponent, that means that the number is going to get smaller in between 0 and 1. And so if I did this, if I kept the pattern going for 10 to the negative second power, I can write this as 1 over 100. And so there's some other ways that I can write 10 to the negative first power and 10 to the negative second power. Another way I can write 10 to the negative first power. So let's just focus on that one. I can also write this as 1 over 10 to the first power. Or I can write it as a decimal of 0 and 1/10. Another way I can focus on 10 to the negative second power, I can write that as 1 over 10 squared, which is the same as saying I can do this as 1 over 10 times 1 over 10. So you can see I'm just writing this fraction 1 over 10 two times with multiplication in between. And I can also write this as the decimal 0 and 1/100th. And so this pattern repeats on and on and on again. And so some unique things to take a look at here is anytime we have any number to the 0 power, anytime I have a number to the 0 power, it's always going to equal 1. And so you can see here to 10 to the negative first power, I just have 1/10. So if you start there, you can see that 10 to the negative second power only has 1 0 after the decimal. And so if I have 10 to the negative 7th power, that means I'm going to have 6 numbers after the decimal point. And so some things you can take a look at to help you out to remember the negative powers of 10. But a really great strategy is if you start with 10 to the 0 power and you keep dividing by 10, you'll get the right fraction, you can get the right decimal, and then work on the expanded form from there.